Ladies and gentlemen, it's 4 o'clock, so let's go ahead and start the legal committee meeting for December 17th. Could we have a roll call, please, Amon?
Counselor Stokes,
Here.
Counselor Peterson, Counselor Perry,
Yes, ma'am, I am here.
and Counselor Foster.
I'm here.
Madam, you have a quorum.
Okay, we do have a quorum. I wonder if we could get now an approval of the agenda, except I'd like to say that number 2, the wayfinding agreement, is not ready to come to committee, so we'll need to just,
Remove it or,
right,
okay.
thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the exception of removing the wayfinding agreement to bring it back at a later date.
Okay, do I have a second?
Chair, since I am not present, what is your preference? Would you prefer that I did not make any motions or seconds?
No. I mean, I'm fine with you doing so.
All right, I second. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda with removing item 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, the next item is the approval of the minutes from the October meeting.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 22nd Legal Council meeting.
Do I have a second?
second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Those will be approved as well. Since we're not doing item 2, or no, I'm sorry, I'm jumping over. Item 1 is the renewal lease with the New Mexico Department of Health. Could I get a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to consider for approval for full council the New Mexico DOH lease of building number 611 with all
All the terms.
all terms and conditions of the lease.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to recommend to council the approval of the renewal lease with the Department of Health for building number 611. Mr. Stark, are you going to talk to us?
Person.
Yay.
So this would be a renewal for a 5-year term beginning on February 1st, 2021, with 3 additional 5-year options to renew with mutual agreement between the parties at $56,352 quarterly, $225,408 annually. And I stand for any questions.
Okay.
All right.
Do you, go ahead.
I'm not comfortable with a 5-year and this, I mean, I was not happy that we were locked into a 20-year lease with them pretty much up until now. And I don't mind with conditions the way they are with COVID. I can see, you know, not kicking them out, but I could see giving them a 1-year lease with 5-year terms instead of redoing this for 20 years again, because I don't see that city property should be used for the state. I think the state needs to come into the city and rent from a property owner that pays property tax. I don't think we should be subsidizing our state. I mean, especially from the DOH. We do rent to the DOT out there, but they also do a lot more for us, and they're not taking up that much space. The building they're in could be a lot better served something that's more designed to be at the airport.
Counselor Foster, I did want to reiterate that we did the terms a little bit differently than we do normally on the options. This one requires mutual agreement of the parties. So the 3 options for 5 years each are not guaranteed. We have to come to mutual agreement. The only guarantee is the first 5 years.
And that's where I still don't want to guarantee it to them for 5 years. I understand right now it's not a time I want to upheave them because we're right in the middle of dealing with COVID, but I could see that in a year or two, give them time to find another place too. I don't want to say you're out in 60 days or whatever. I don't want that. But I do think that there's plenty of rentable space in the city of Roswell right now that's empty that the state could be renting from our local businesses, and that we could find some other use for this building that would be better served for the public.
Counselor, I would also note that the governing body does have the right to terminate without cause upon a majority vote at any time, and then they have 90 days to get out, as this one is drafted.
Mm-hmm.
So if the council were to decide in 2 years that they don't want to continue with it, they could possibly go that route.
Okay, and it does have 90 days because we had looked at, I thought we had seen.
Yes, sir, I made
prior.
that. I made that change after the comments made at the last
Okay,
meeting. Yes.
Okay, cool. So I just think that us giving them a 5-year lease is pretty much telling them, oh, you're there for 5 years, when, let's be honest, I don't want to 2 years down the road say you got 90 days to move out, and they think that they didn't have fair enough warning. So I think that if we did a lease for, 1-year terms for 5 years like this, that they would get the gist that we want them to find another place within the city of Roswell.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Please, Counselor Perry.
Thank you, and Councilor Foster as well, thank you. I think my thoughts on this are that, and Councilor Foster has talked, and by the way, in Councilor Foster's defense, Councilor Foster has spoken to me about this consideration way before COVID was even a possibility in Roswell. So that his concerns seem to be that for the benefit of the community and has nothing to do with the pandemic or anything we have going on right now. And I think that I see merit in what he is saying, that eventually to see them go into a private rental agreement with private sector. I guess what I'm looking at when Councilor Foster and I went through the building with EDC, they said, that this is definitely a building that could be a possibility. I would want to think that if we had a potential company, a viable company that wanted to come in that had 20 employees they were bringing, or 30 employees they were going to be bringing to New Mexico, I would think that the governor and the secretary of the Department of Health would be very inclined to see business growing in our area, and would be very amenable to look into a direction of private leasing. My concern is I don't want to end up in a situation of putting them in a circumstance to where in 1 year they are out or something like that, and we do have them move out, and then we have an empty building for 6 years or for 4 years or for 8 years while we're waiting for this company to come in to take the facility. We all know what an empty building does. An empty building costs a lot of money to keep up and to keep where it needs to be. So that would be my only concern. I think that there's definitely a warrant in changing the termination clause for 90 days. I think I'm completely comfortable with that. If there's not comfortability in the extensions of the 3-5 year, I think that I would be negotiable in that area. But I think that having a tenant there in place with a 5-year contract is not out of a normal term to look at, and then knowing that we have the termination clause in there with that possibility to where if our EDC does find a company, I would dare say if we had a company that was wanting in that building that had 30 employees bringing to New Mexico, Santa Fe may be the ones to do the terminating of the lease before we even would, because they would love to see something like that come into to New Mexico as well. So that would be my hesitation on just a 1 year or just a 2 year lease. I would feel more comfortable with the 5 year. I am more negotiable on the extensions or the renewals, if you would say, if there's any discussion in that. I'll say also as well, I know if we can remember, each of us have our own feelings on that, but I think it does warrant that we need to recognize as a committee that probably conversation that will come at full council will be on the yearly rent increase. We heard from some councilors who, and some members of the governing body who desire that to be more. I've heard from some that have a desire to see that at more at a 5%. I'm not saying that's where I stand at all, but I think that it warrants knowing that when this gets to full council, that is a possibility. So maybe that warrants a little bit of discussion during committee so that we can at least have some foreknowledge as to where we're going with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further staff comments from either, not our council or our airport director? Okay.
Since we came up, since Councilor Perry mentioned it, I just wanted to reiterate that the increases for the first 5 years are 3% increases rather than a CPI increase at all. They're a solid 3%.
I appreciate you mentioning that. I couldn't remember what it was, but it's built into here that it's 3% each year.
It is.
For the first 5 years.
It's not spelled out that way. It just has the
Right.
price.
It has the
It is
amount.
3%.
But I couldn't remember what the percentage was, so
I'll save you doing the math.
thank you.
Well, and
'Cause these are big numbers.
Just to have it in the record, the first year is 225,000, second year is 232, the third year was 239, and then fourth was 246, and the fifth year was 253,000. So, and considering right now they're paying 108,000 relatively, so it is a major jump from where they are now. And so, and I appreciate that. My whole thing is still the fact that that's what they would be, this is closer to what they'd be paying in the city anyway. And prior to that, the last 20 years, we've been giving them a cut rate and have been subsidizing them for 20 years. And so, not that I want to make up, my whole thing is I would like, and I'm not opposed to having, 5 one-year leases on this, renew it every year for, but to have it set and then turn around and if we did find somebody a year down the road or 18 months down the road and say we give you 90 days, it's not as clear as telling them, look, we're wanting to find another tenant for this that's better serves the airport and better serves Roswell.
Okay. Counselor Perry, any comment?
Sure, and appreciate the comment that Councilor Foster said is that, that we agree it has been much cheaper than maybe any business should have been. That we can't make up for past years. Of course, those were previous councils that made those commitments, and I would also recognize and agree that sometimes we as a council, I won't say we bind another council, but when we put such significant so many years into something, it does make it harder for future councils to negotiate and work into something that's better for the community at that time. I wonder, Councilor Stubbs, do you desire, I know Councilor Peterson's not here, and I know we just had a workshop and we discussed a lot of this concerning voting and not voting and numbers and different things. Do we desire to try to have a solid resolve to this to send to full council with the vote, or do we desire to look at this and send to full council without recommendation? I guess would be a question I would have at this time.
Counselor Perry, I believe in lieu of the fact that we do have rules in front of us that have not been amended, only discussed, that we would continue the same procedure that we have been, and that is try to get a vote from the three of us and send it to full council with whatever that outcome is at this point in
Okay.
time.
Oh,
Could I just very quickly ask a question? You two know this, but haven't they put a great deal of improvements into that building since they've been there and customized it and a lot of things?
There's quite a bit of interior, work that's not really, it's not necessarily permanent. It does look
Right.
better, yeah. They have done some things like that. It isn't structural. We have put a new roof on part of it. We put new air conditioners on it in the last several years, so we've done a lot of that kind of work. And just as a reminder, the lease that they just came out of requires us to do all the maintenance. So does this one. That's part of the justification for the high price. But and so I don't anticipate that they would do a lot. They did do some, mostly in the, if I remember right, in the areas of the warehouse and that type of thing. And then they did some cosmetic type stuff in the offices to make it look better, painting and that type of stuff. So yeah, it looks pretty nice, and they did do some of that work themselves, but I don't know. It was before I came on with the city, so I'm not sure exactly what they did and when. Councilor Foster or Perry may have a better idea.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how much they did, but, and like Counselor Perry said, this is something, in 2012, I was the chair of the airport committee and wasn't very happy with the fact that we were subsidizing the DOH. And I keep saying that word, but that is basically what we were doing when we were giving them cheap rate. And on a building that we were taking care of, a lot of the buildings out there, we give good rent to and lower cost rent, but those tenants were taking care of the building and were improving the building. And here was a building that we were doing major work on, and we were doing the roof, we were doing the air conditioning, we were doing that kind of stuff, and they were still getting a lower rent.
Okay. Any further discussion? Scott, again, we've talked about the fact that this is an escalation in rent from what they've been paying. Give me an idea how much, a lot?
It's almost double. They were paying, if I remember about $6.30 a square foot.
Okay.
I may
Right
have
at
that,
6.
not perfect, but in that ballpark. And this is $12 a square foot.
Okay, thank you. With yearly 3% increase?
Yes, with 3% increase on top of that, so it'll go up every year.
Okay, I appreciate that. So,
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
I think that maybe what my recommendation would be, and I'd like to hear your thoughts and Councilor Foster's thoughts as well. I think that we all recognize that this is something that's going to be discussed probably at length at council. So my recommendation, since the 90 days has already been fixed in what we have here, the other two concerns, which would be the lease length and the percentage of adjustment after each yearly increase, maybe those are items that are better left for amendment at full council.
Okay.
If there is, I guess is the best way to say it. That's just a suggestion.
Okay. Our resolution does say that airport leases go on the consent agenda.
Right, but in my motion, I did not put this on the consent agenda.
Oh, I think I
put it on-
said consent agenda.
No,
You
I didn't.
You
I said it
didn't.
was on the, it was
Oh,
asked and
sorry.
it was,
Okay, so the motion does not include putting this on the consent
No.
agenda. Okay. Okay. So any further discussion on the motion then? Anyone else want to add? Okay. So we do have a motion to take this to full council on the regular agenda for the January council meeting. Is there any further discussion or comments or questions?
And maybe this is probably the best. I mean, I hate to have a ton of amendments come forward, but maybe we could put two different sets before the council. And my whole thinking is, the 5 years just seems like a big chunk. If we, instead of doing a 20-year, if we just did the 5 one-year term with 1-year renewals, that would be a little bit less. I mean, I know realistically it's actually just a 90-day at least, because in 90 days we could have them out. But that's not what we're looking for. I'm just wanting them to realize that this isn't. I don't want them to see 20 years and think, oh, we've got it for another 20 years. So I don't think the council's going to be for that. I don't think we have the numbers for that. And I don't want to kick them out now. But I do want to let them know the writing on the wall that they should be looking in the next couple of years or at least a year to find another place. And so why not present 2 different leases, one with 2 different terms? I mean, I know this is what they've agreed to, right? They've already agreed to this?
Yeah.
Except for the 90
yeah.
days, we changed that. So
Oh.
there's already things in here they have not agreed to yet.
Okay.
I'll say from my point of view, it would be cleaner to just have amendments than to have 2 different versions. Could
Okay.
get very confusing as to
Okay.
which one we're adopting at council, so that's just my thought on it.
Yeah, for what it's
Mr.
worth,
Knapp?
that would be my preference as well.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, city councilors,
Matt.
I agree with our attorney. The challenge we have is that we have other city councilors with different opinions
Right.
about the lease as well. And I believe that going through the amendment process is probably the best way to resolve that. I'm afraid that if we give 2 versions, neither one of the versions are going to be the ones that we finally resolve on. So I believe that it'd be better to go with the 1 version and just make the amendments, because I think we've got a lot of different opinions out there on that, and I think it's probably easier for everybody to deal with the 1 document and adjust accordingly.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, Joe. I agree. And I think that regardless of what we send to full council, I think all 3 of us, and I don't want to speak on behalf of all 3 of us, but I would think that all 3 of us agree that there's enough varying opinions on the council that there's going to be at least motions for amendments there. That's why I think that what we have right now, whether this is going to be the final that goes through or not, is probably best to send to full council and allow those amendment processes to go there. Though I do not agree in philosophy with what Councilor Foster says about private sector benefiting from such an entity as this. I think that's very wise and very, very possible that needs to be looked into, and also for our EDC to know of such a building that could be a possibility. I just don't know that the departments at the state right now in this pandemic are going to be looking at priority of trying to find another building in the next year or something, when we're now hearing, even with the vaccine, we're still looking at a lot of public events and stuff not being able to start till 2022 and possibility. So we may be looking at this virus, God forbid, another 6 months, another year and a half. We don't know. So that's where I tend to be more on the conservative end of this thing, of being more hesitant in that. So that's why I think maybe all the amendments process taking place at council to where we can hear it out there.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments? All right. Just another question. Scott, how many folks out at the Air Center, especially on the outside of the fence like this building is, are paying $12 a square foot?
None of them.
Approximately, okay.
None of them.
So this is is high for what we've been charging at this point. Okay, thank you.
It is, but hopefully it's first of many.
Yes, one would, yes. Someone has to start, right?
Right.
Well, and my question is, do we know what the going rate of our downtown businesses per square foot?
I'm pretty sure in the office buildings, they're not more than about the 10 to 12. at the
Well,
most.
12 to 17 is what they are.
12 to 17?
Yes. When we had the EDC look at this building, 17 was what they guesstimated the going price was. But we did look into some other buildings downtown.
Madam Chair, Council, we actually went over to the SunWest building and had some conversation over there just probably just a year ago. Their offer for renting out space at that point in time was $12 a square foot, triple net. And so, the expenses were paid a little bit differently. And so I think we can get up into the $15 to $18 range depending on what's out there. And I think that's where we kind of came up with we believe that the $12 is a market rate that is an average, if nothing else, of that level. So,
But again, just to mention that location is an incredible factor in all of this, and those that want downtown, as opposed to that want out at the Air Center, are very different. But that's, I think, something we need to remember is location as well. And I think the other important point about this is the division of the Department of Health that is housed at the Air Center is not seeing patients, or this is their district office, and that this is a good location for them to get in and out of Roswell to go to the different areas that they go to, and that these are at least 32, 35 well-paying jobs that we have to think about as well, so.
Councilor
Okay,
Perry, you had the numbers, didn't you, of how many employees?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, forgive me, I think that 27 currently, they had the capability of having staff currently, if I'm not.
Counselor Perry.
You're breaking up, but 27 is what you had told me that you
Yes,
had
sir,
been
that's
told.
correct.
27 employees right now out there. They
And
have
I
a
was told
capability
30.
of higher,
Yeah, they
but
have
27 is
capability.
what they have right now, and that's what came from Mr. Masters. But that being said, though, that building could house a lot more employees, and when you start looking at the scope of what we have for the airport, Department of Health isn't one of those that falls under airport, the business plan for the airport. So I know in the past we have denied rental of buildings when we had an airport type business to another business that was, say, a auctioneer, and we lean towards going towards ones that deal with airport business.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Then we have a motion on the floor to put on the regular consent agenda.
Regular.
I'm sorry, regular agenda. There's no such thing. On the regular agenda, the airport lease of Building 611 to the New Mexico Department of Health for a 5-year term commencing on February 1st of 2021, with the addition of 3 5-year options to renew. Have I got it? Okay, thank you. So hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the vote is 2-1, so it will go on the regular agenda, I'm sure for further discussion. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the National Purchasing Partners Intergovernmental Agreement. Mr. Patterson?
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee. This one is actually almost like a housekeeping thing. This agreement is for us to join a purchasing cooperative. You guys, I think, are already familiar with the concept, but it can be very beneficial to the city because basically someone else does all the homework and we get to cheat and get the benefit of that, and without having to go out to proposals or bids or any of that stuff. It's a fairly standard one. We've signed them in the past. The funny thing about this one is that we thought we were already members of this, and it was when we went out, we were trying to use one of their contracts, and we started looking into it, and we searched back as far as we could find, and although we have an account on them so we can log in and see their contracts, so we've signed up, there's no agreement that was ever executed that me or the purchasing officer could find, going back as far as we could look. So this is really just signing the agreement. As far as the purchasing cooperative is concerned, we're already members because we signed up and created an account, but from our side, we want to have the written agreement in place for our paperwork. So that's all it is.
Okay. Thank you. Did we do a motion?
I haven't done a motion yet, but I will. Because I remember passing this motion before, and I can't remember when, but it's in back in the deep dark
we looked
recess.
back and there were previous resolutions that made reference to the purchasing partners, so there were lots of references to it, but the actual agreement cannot be located. We looked through all the stuff that we could, and there was no sign of it.
All right, and Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we send to full council on the consent agenda to approve joining the intergovernmental agreement and nation purchasing partners, and to join and to sign up,
Execute the agreement.
execute the agreement. Yes.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to execute the agreement with the Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchasing Group out of Oregon. Any further discussion, comments? Okay, hearing none then, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the motion passes. This will be recommended on the council consent agenda in January. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have our department reports. Any questions or comments? Appreciate the fact you guys go to a lot of trouble to present this information to me, or to us. I hope that counselors are reading other committee reports as well. They're interesting, so
It's
thank
Amalia that
Madam
has to
Chair, the only thing I'll say is that I appreciate the way that the reports are put together. It makes it very easy. Clerk Call does a good job with putting everything out in a way that's easy to see. And then, of course, these graphs that are coming to us really are beneficial. So they're very appreciative. I just want to make sure staff knows that it's not just something tucked at the end of an agenda that we don't pay attention to it. It's very beneficial.
Thank you. Yes, they are. Okay, is there anything else to come before the committee? I guess not. This is one of our shorter meetings, so thank you all very much. Happy holidays to everyone. Safe and happy New Year. Thank you. We're adjourned at what time? 4:33. Thank you all.
That's a record. Y'all have a good one.